Hi y'all, so this is our video, our simple sketches video for the process of neurulation. So again, breaking it down, battling our embryophobia to try to make these processes simple as possible using very simple schematics. So neurulation, we're going to start off by drawing a great big N for neurulation. Easy way to remember. But what this is going to represent is each of the points of our letter N will be one of the key steps in the process of neurulation. So I like to go ahead and put numbers. We're also going to remember these steps using very simple terms that involve the key processes happening in each of these steps. So we're going to put the word plate. We're going to put the word folds, fusion or fuses, whatever you like, whatever works best for your memory. And then we're going to put pores. These are nice too because they have kind of the alliteration, so plates, folds, fusion, pores. These are the key processes and key steps of neurulation. So let's get on to our simple sketches. So if you watched the previous video with week 3 and 4 of development with the process of gastrulation, you'll know that we have during week 3 the development of our 3 basic germ layers, key in embryology, and that's going to be our ectoderm, our mesoderm, and our endoderm there. So this is very simple. You can go and watch that video to remember how to draw this schematic. The key structure that we drew in our mesoderm layer there that I said we return to in this video is a structure called our notochord. Runs along the length of the embryo, and that key structure is going to be important in signaling to the cells above it around the midline of the embryo to start to develop. So our ectoderm, part of it's going to change into what we're going to call our neuroectoderm. Not all of it though. It's going to form into a neuroectoderm plate, or a neural plate as we'll often call it. And that plate is going to continue to develop in size up into our second stage. But what I want to draw here is we've drawn in a cross section. For each of these stages, you're going to see lots of images on the internet and your textbooks. You can think of this process happening in our cross section. So if you watch the last video, cutting through our cake, so to speak, or you can think of it as looking down on top of the dorsal aspect of the embryo. So we'd be looking down at our ectoderm layer. We can't see our mesoderm or our endoderm because they would be ventral to it, below it, so to speak. But you can think of it as this way, and we're going to start to see kind of a plate of tissue. This is going to be our neuroectoderm. So if we cut through that, that's the view that we're seeing here. So I'll try to show you both of them so you can get those two different perspectives as we walk through our steps. We then move on to our fold step. So our neural plate that we have, so we can draw it like this. We can draw our plate. Is going to start to fold up on the lateral side, so you can just draw it really simply there. So we're going to have our neural plate. The edges are going to rise up, and we'll have those edges be called our neural folds, giving us this stage name. And that kind of midline that you see there between the two folds, it's embryology, so of course we're going to name it, and that's going to be our neural groove. So again, if we do a cut through, we can think of this as a folding up, so to speak, of that neural plate. So this is our neural plate. We still have the continuation of our ectoderm there. What's also key here that I want to show in a slightly different color is you start to get some even further differentiation there of specialized tissues, and that's going to be the first appearance of our neural crest cells. So really important cell type. I like to call them the wandering cell. They're going to go to lots of different places, contribute to many different structures in the developing embryo. A lot of work in the head and neck region in particular. But our neural crest cells are also a derivative of the process of neurulation, or the formation of the central nervous system basics of our neural tube, which is a key structure in embryology. So we can't forget our neural crest cells also originate in this process, and you'll often see them depicted really well via kind of these cells grouping off at the edges of our developing neural plate throughout this process. So that's our simple explanation for our folds. On to our fusion. So we're going to show our neural plate there with our neural folds. And what you'll actually see is the neural folds start to fuse. It's going to start in the cervical region, so our neck region of our developing embryo, or future neck, I suppose I should say. And that cervical region, there's going to be midline fusion of those neural folds. That groove is going to be maintained, but because our folds are touching kind of over it now, is creating more like a hollow tube. And that's how we get the establishment of what we'll call our eventual complete neural tube, is how we start to get a tube-like, hollow-like structure there. So you'll see fusion there. A lot of times in images, you'll see kind of somites drawn in to lateral aspect of those folds that are fusing at the midline. That's because while this is happening, our neural tube is sinking in a SOVA way speaking, sinking underneath our ectoderm layer. So we can draw how we're moving on from our cross section. We can draw our neural tube if we're in a more cervical region here. Maybe not quite cervical. You can see it touching there. The two aspects of our folds nearly touching to close off. There's our center, which was formerly our neural groove. Now we're creating our entire neural tube. And our neural crest cells, which we're kind of developing on the lateral aspect as part of this process, will start to pinch off so that they can go and travel where they need to go. So we're seeing fusion. That's going to continue both cranially, so it's going to happen in this direction, and it's going to happen caudally in that direction, until we get to our final stage that we're calling our pores. So if we look at our drawing here, and we can look at our tube in this way, now we're looking superiorly, but it's almost like we're looking through the ectoderm because our tube is sinking under the ectoderm. We'll see that nearly all of our neural tube has closed up except for two ends on either region. So that's going to be our cranial neuropore, that little opening on the cranial end region. And then we're going to have one on our caudal region, our caudal neuropore. Those will be the two last little openings continuing from this process of fusion there. We'll need to draw our cross section. So at this point, you can see that for most of that neural tube, it's now established. It's sunk under the ectoderm, and we can see a distinct separation from it and our neural crest cells there. And this pore stage is our last stage, because once we get closure of these two little neuropores, that's going to signify the end of neurulation, and we're going to have the completion and establishment of our neural tube. So the cranial neuropore, you'll sometimes also see it called the anterior neuropore, is going to close around day 25. These are approximate. And then finally, that caudal neuropore will close around day 28, so reaching the end of week 4, the end of week 1, or the first month of development, we're going to have establishment of our neural tube. As I mentioned in the last video, that complete closure at this end of week 4 is also one of the big driving forces, or I should say the formation of the neural tube is one of the big driving forces in embryonic folding, which is an important process. You can see kind of how this establishment of this tube and its rapid growth and its shape will help drive that in another video. So hopefully this is a simple schematic using a big letter N and 4 simple steps to break down the process of neurulation. As always, I'll have the nice pretty version up on a picture, so to speak, at the end of this video so that you can have kind of a cleaner version to look at. But as always, I hope you had an informative time drawing along the process of neurulation with me.